Hey everyone, what's going on? Today we have Alejandro from Casa Turrent Cigars. It is an honor and a privilege. He's a fifth generation tobacco grower and they've been in the business since the 70s. A lot of exciting stuff to talk about with him today. Let's get this started. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Awesome. So tell us the history about when you started as a fifth generation cigar maker, getting involved in the business, and how has it evolved into what we see now with the brand that's become.
Okay, well, we are from San Andrés, Mexico. Mexico is it's on the east south of Mexico City, in the state of Veracruz. San Andrés, it's an area surrounded by mountains, volcanoes, lakes, rivers. It's a tropical area, high humidity, high temperature.
Wow.
It's beautiful. And of course, because of the volcanic soil, we are able to grow one of the best tobaccos in the world.
Yes.
The original tobacco from the area, it's called Negro San Andres, is
Okay.
where the San Andres Maduro wrapper comes from,
Sure.
which is used, as you know, by many, many brands.
Yes.
And we started to, well, San Andres started to produce that kind of tobacco since 1850, more
Okay.
or less. And my family started in 1880
Wow.
to grow tobacco. And we've been growing tobacco almost continuously until now. Even though the two world wars and some situations, social and political situations that we had for some years in Mexico are related to the property of the farms, etc. But we've been, like I said, almost constantly growing tobacco since then. I'm the
Yeah.
fifth generation. And then in the 70s, my family became involved in a cigar company, which their brand was called Tiamo and still exists,
Oh
of
wow.
course.
Yeah, Ti amo. Yeah.
Tiamo back then was a very, very strong brand in the east coast of the US.
Yep.
And then in the 80s, this car business was not so good in general. And then in the early 90s, it some signs of recovery started, and my family took over the company. So he bought out the other shareholders that still were
Sure.
in the company. And so since then, since 1993, we became fully owners of the company, of the cigar company.
Beautiful.
No?
Yeah, it's a lot of history, a lot of history. And obviously we've seen the evolution of San Andrés tobacco over the past decade. I believe it's no question it's gotten very popular and a lot of brands have been incorporating into their blends. And that's the tobacco that you guys are mainly responsible for, as you mentioned, the wrapper that you grow and supply to a lot of the major brands people are familiar with, San Andrés wrapper, and all this stuff comes from that region that you described. And you're responsible for growing, harvesting all the plantations from that region?
Yes, we are completely vertically integrated. The farms belong to us. We produce the seed. We, of course, when we are not growing tobacco, we take care of of the farms. We incorporate nitrogen through a special kind of bean. The barns belongs to us. So all those things are very, very important. They have to do with
Yeah,
the quality of the tobacco, of course.
sure.
Yes.
And I think there's quite a bit of confusion. Sometimes people will think of San Andreas wrapper and just kind of see it as one varietal, but San Andreas as a tobacco can be different varietals in of itself, correct? Like you have different color shades of the wrapper. I've seen San Andreas that is a lot lighter than the San Andreas that is a very bold dark Maduro. How do those two different kind of distinct variations of that wrapper differ from each other?
Well, yes, you're right, and that's the magic about the Negro San Andres tobacco,
Negro,
no?
and sorry, Negro is the lighter shade, correct? Or
Negro is the name
the
of the
dark,
type of of
the
tobacco, the
type,
seed.
the
Yes,
seed. Sure,
it's called like that. Negro San Andres tobacco. That's the
sure,
name of the seed, and from there is where the San Andres Maduro comes from. The
yes,
San Andres Maduro wrapper comes from, right? And yes, you get the dark leaves from the middle part of the plant, and from a little bit lower, you can also get beautiful wrappers, no? But they don't look they don't have any similarity. No?
Yeah.
The ones below are completely um different. They are lighter. They
Yeah.
have a nice reddish color, and the most important, the taste. It's like day and night.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
actually, many years ago, when I started to work on a new blend, back then was Revolution, actually, that we're
Yeah.
relaunching now.
Yeah.
Well, that was another cigar. I discovered this wrapper, which we didn't use it as a wrapper. This leaf that we were not using as wrapper, we were using as binder. And I started to do some blends and try them, smoke them, and it and I love it because the taste that you get from this wrapper, different than the Maduro one, it's amazing also. No,
Yeah.
it's got some, it's a little more how can I say, um herbal but sweet taste, no?
Yes.
While the Negro San Andres wrapper, San Andres Maduro wrapper, it's completely different, no? The taste that you get from the San Andres Maduro wrapper is it's got like a sweet, like salty sweetness, I would
Yeah.
say. No?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yes, that's what the tobacco from the Negro San Andres can give you, no?
Sure.
And just let me, because you mentioned something very important, and we as a family,
Sure.
we also grow different kind of seeds. No,
Yes.
we don't stick to the Negro San Andres, which is what the majority of the tobacco growers produce.
Yes.
We grow three types of Cuban seeds. We grow also Sumatra seed
Yes.
coming from Indonesia, and we grow Connecticut. So for us,
And all these seeds are grown in the San Andreas region.
only in the San
Only San
Andres.
Andreas
Yes.
region. So let's go over some of the portfolio cigars, some of our most top selling favorite Casa Turrent cigars, and give some of our friends and customers a little bit of a description on what that blend is about and that growing process stuff. So I want to start with Casa Turrent, the 1901. It has a very bolder, more of a darker Maduro San Andreas wrapper. That one, how did that kind of like name 1901 come about, and what does it stand for?
Well, we have a line that is called 1900 series,
Yes,
and there's where the 1901 belongs. That
yes,
line belongs. It's the first Casa Turrent that we created, and the blend has tobaccos from San Andres, of course, the Negro San Andres, Habanos from San Andres, and Nicaragua.
wow,
And then it's got the pioneer from a Cuban seed from San Andres,
wow,
and a special. And why do I say special? Because we are very focused also on the thickness of the tobacco, right?
sure,
Not only as viso or ligero, we also consider very much the color and the thickness. So in this case, the color that we select and the thickness that we select for the 1901, it's dark and quite thick. No?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So that gives you another. The point is that that gives you another flavor. No,
Yeah, another
an extra.
flavor. It has layers and depth, and the profile is kind of from when I smoke it, I get like a sweetie cocoa type flavor
Right.
to it.
That's also one
Yeah,
of the flavors that you get from the Negro San
yeah,
Andres.
and where it contrasts and differs from a blend like the Rosado 1880, and this Rosado refers to the color of the
Right.
wrapper, and it's a Habano seed,
Correct. Yes.
Habano seed Rosado. So you were saying earlier, just to go back to I want to circle back, the Habano seed is grown in San Andreas, and that's what we see with this wrapper right here,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Right.
so how would you describe the flavor of this cigar? And obviously we went over the bolder ones, has more of a cocoa, sweeter type note to it. But what can people expect from a Rosado color Habano seed wrapper from San Andreas when it comes to this
Here,
blend?
for me, sometimes it's difficult to establish a description of in terms of
Yeah, I
flavor,
know it's
right? It's
subjective.
not.
It's
It's a little bit
subjective, but just
subjective.
as
But
general as possible.
what I find, it's a lot of sweetness. Actually, San Andres soil gives to the tobacco a lot of sweetness.
Mhm.
That's something known, no,
That's the
from the
special
tobacco
properties of
from
the
Mexico.
volcanic
Exactly.
soil.
So you get a lot of sweetness. Now you get a sweetness. For example, the negro has a sweetness that is more similar to chocolate, cacao,
Yes,
right?
yes,
The Habano, the all different kind of Habano seed that we grow in San Andres, they taste more like well, the sweetness that they delivery is more like a caramel type of sweetness, no?
Okay.
So that's the one that this cigar has in particular. Then the it tastes a little bit toasty, in my opinion.
Yes.
It delivers some creaminess
Sure.
also, and some kind of nutty taste, I would say.
Beautiful. And most recently, we got a new cigar into the Canadian market. It's the Aged Revolution. Casa Turrent Cigars, in our long history of carrying the brand, what we've realized, they have a lot of age on a lot of the tobacco blends, if not all of them. And what is it about the Aged Revolution that makes it such a good value? How long has that blend been aged for? And what is like the overall description of like the binder filler? Can you go more into that?
Sure. Actually, the Revolution aged is almost about 90% Cuban seed,
Okay.
and it's um, the tobaccos that that's why we call it aged, because the tobaccos are really aged. Tobaccos that cannot go to the I shouldn't say to the Casa Turrent
Yeah. Yeah.
brand,
Yeah.
not because they don't have good quality. Actually, it's exactly the opposite. They have great quality, but they don't comply with the what with the standards that
Yes.
we establish for the blend of the Casa Turrent, no? Meaning basically thickness, no? That is very
Yeah.
important. Again,
Yes.
no, it's something that we are very careful with, no? And we know that at least our tobacco changes if you let me put you an example. No, you have the Viso, one of the types
Yeah.
of tobacco that
Yeah.
you get, right? From the Viso, we can get four types of thicknesses, no?
Wow.
Very thick one and very thin one. And they taste completely different, no?
Yes. Yes.
So what we do, let's say that we established, because 1880 was before revolution, before this new revolution. So we established that the blend for the Casa Turrent, uh, most of them, had to be this type of tobacco, right? From the we use primings, no? From
Yes.
the fourth priming, this type of thickness. Okay, what about the rest? No,
Yes.
what are we going to do with the rest? So for many years, we kept this tobacco that we were not using, and now we're using for the revolution. So it's basically a very mild
It's a
Casa Turrent,
mild,
let's
yeah,
say.
mild
No,
Casa
no,
Turrent cigar.
exactly.
And we
Yes.
have it available in two sizes, in a Robusto and Toro. And I mean, they're under $15 retail. So they've been performing really well. Very excited. And another thing I wanted to touch on is San Andreas in a region of itself, right? The weather is always accommodating for harvestation and plantation, all this stuff. So how is your schedule like between making sure that the growing part of your business is always on schedule and then the blending? Are you responsible for that as well?
I'm responsible for the blending.
You're the blending. Okay.
Yes, I don't get too much involved in the tobacco fields, the
Yes.
tobacco operation.
Tobacco
No,
operation. Yeah.
yes, yes.
When you go to blend a new cigar, what is your thought process and how do you come from point A and how do you go to point B?
Well, that's a really complex process.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it changes. It's not like you have a systematic way,
I mean,
no, to do
obviously
the
you
blends.
have different varietals to work with, right? You know, you have Cuban seed varietals, you have your San Andreas, like the seed in itself, and you can really go so many different directions.
Right,
But
right.
you narrow down to something that you think is suitable for the market. It's been, aged well enough, refined long enough, and obviously it took a long time to get there. But it's got to be some like, it's you're really going off based your own personal experience in a sense, right? Yeah,
Right. The first thing that you need to know is how each tobacco tastes, no?
sure,
Negros, habanos, primings, levels of fermentation, no? So once you know that, which I've been working on that for many years, no?
sure.
So I believe now I'm a little bit better, right? So I know which ingredients I have, no? So it's a little bit easier for me. Not I'm not saying that it's easier, right?
Yeah,
But
but
in
the
that
process is
sense,
simplified. Yeah, yeah. It's
exactly.
still
Then
very extensive process,
the
I can
first
imagine.
thing that you need to know is what would you like to, what do you need to achieve? No, what do you want
Yeah,
to get
what
in
are you
terms of
aiming? What market gap do you want to kind of fill in? Kind
exactly,
of.
yes,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's the first thing. Otherwise, you will get crazy if you were to.
yeah,
Although sometimes you are playing with some tobaccos and suddenly
yeah.
you get something that is different.
Sure.
It's excellent. So you say, hey, probably I will consider this
Yes.
for some project in the future, right?
Yes.
Anyway, but if you are working on something in particular, you may have an idea what tobaccos could work. However, it's not 100% sure that you will uh, uh, get that blend really fast.
Exactly
No,
the way you wanted it to be. Yeah.
exactly. And the problem with sometimes with the tobaccos that you are using in a blend that you want to create is that they may be not ready. So you have to wait a little bit, right? Because you don't have
Yeah.
tobacco that's enough age. So
Yeah.
okay, I believe this cigar
Yeah.
could taste better if this particular tobacco leaf it's a little bit more aged,
So
no?
yeah, you
Or
see potential, but you never really know until you wait, and a lot of patience
and
to
you
find out.
exactly yes. So sometimes a blend can take 2 years, not to develop.
Yeah.
Sometimes the blend can take. So this is what happened with the rosado. It took us like 2 weeks to create it. No,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was fantastic. It had never happened before.
Yeah.
No,
And it
and I
came out
think
to be
with
really well
exactly yes, this is our number one seller.
at the moment,
Yes,
right
at the
now.
moment, yes,
Wow,
the
that's
rosado.
beautiful. Would it also happen to be your favorite cigar, you would think, or do you have
No,
one?
no, no, I don't have a favorite
Yeah.
cigar. I mean, I enjoy uh, all of them, of course. Now I have some that I may smoke more often,
Sure.
no, but that's it.
Yeah. So obviously, I want to see if you kind of share the same perspective, but I've noticed from a retailer perspective, a lot of customers have kind of trended towards more of a full body, stronger cigar over recent years. And the Connecticut cigars, I don't want to say they died off. Obviously,
Mhm.
there's a market for everything, but from what I understand, it's not as popular as the bolder smokes. And when it comes to the bolder smokes, I think of two different wrappers that are mainly kind of dominating that full body category. Connecticut broadleaf and the San Andreas wrapper. A lot of people kind of interchange the two. There's some similarities in flavor notes. You can get cocoa sweetness from a broadleaf wrapper. San Andreas in of itself is obviously a whole different varietal, but what, in your opinion, is the main difference between the two in terms of how they taste? I know it's subjective, but just so I can kind of get a sense of like the difference between the two in terms of flavor. I
Be-
kind of have an
Between
opinion of my own. Yeah,
the two what?
the
The,
two wrappers, the Connecticut broadleaf and San Andreas.
okay, because you were saying that people are preferring, or you see that people are more into the full body cigars, or
Yeah,
or not Connecticut. That's a big question, no? I don't
yeah,
know. I hear sometimes that, but I'm not sure. What I believe is that, well, first, both types of tobacco, for example, Maduros or Connecticut's are completely different, right? They are like red wine and white wine.
yeah.
So then the thing with more bold cigars, stronger cigars, is that the people who smoke them are more active, I would say, no, more active in social media. They
Yeah,
speak more.
yeah,
They give their opinion. So probably that's why many people have the impression that people are moving towards that kind of flavor. No, I don't know. I think it's 50-50. That's my guess. No, it's
yeah,
still
yeah.
now the difference in taste. Well, it's a lot. No,
It's a lot,
there is
sure.
nothing to do. No, and
Yeah.
then and also when you say Maduro, uh, I can only say about San Andres Maduro, no, because I'm not familiar with or
Other,
that
yeah,
familiar with
yeah,
the Connecticut broadleaf
yeah,
or
yeah,
the one from Brazil. No, I can tell you about our tobacco, our San Andres Maduro, which, as I said, no, I believe it's got this uh, taste profile, cacao, chocolate, dark chocolate,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
some slight and enjoyable earthiness, some toasty notes, some woody notes also, and compared to the Connecticut, for example, something different. No,
hmm,
Connecticut, for example, we grow some Connecticut, and as I said, since San Andres gives a lot of sweetness to tobacco, you get some kind of sweet and sour taste, let's say. So
Sweet and sour, sure.
from the Connecticut,
From,
yes.
yeah. If somebody wanted to go in and purchase a Casa Turrent cigar, they're looking for a full-bodied smoke. What would be a recommendation that you would kind of suggest for a full-bodied cigar? You have a lot of different options to choose from, but can you tell me if there's any personal preference from your end that you think would be a good try?
Okay, from the collection of the 1880 line, I would go for the Maduro
Yes.
or the Doble Maduro.
Yes.
No? Then from the collection of the 1900, I would go for the definitely for the 1901.
Okay. And then in contrast, like what would be a milder cigar? What is how much of your portfolio has of what you would describe as a milder strength and mild flavor profile? Because I don't really see much.
Indeed, that's right.
Yeah.
In the again in the 1900 line, I would recommend the 1942.
1942, sure.
Yes, that's on
Milder.
behalf of my father, and actually, because my father doesn't like strong cigars,
Oh wow, yeah, yeah.
we did it that way on purpose. And on the 1880, I would recommend definitely the Claro. That's for
Claro.
sure. Yes, that's or sorry,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
the most of the lines, but in this size actually, 55 by 6.5, the doble robusto. Because as
55.
you know, the longer and the thicker, the intensity goes down. No,
The longer and thicker ring gauge,
correct. Yes,
intensity goes down.
goes down.
Okay,
Right.
yes, yes.
Yes.
So, and that makes sense because I feel like if it's a thinner, let's say a Corona Gorda, that's like 46 ring
It's
gauge,
got some
more amplified
kick.
notes. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
more of a kick to it. So it is true. You know, you do taste more of the cigar if you have a thinner ring gauge. You think that the
Exactly. Yes.
taste is, it's like the best, in your opinion, the best size to taste a cigar would be a smaller ring gauge.
When we are working on new blends, we usually make them in a robusto size.
In a Robusto?
5 by 50 or
Yeah,
5 1/4 to 52. If we are going to launch robusto and we are, which is it's common,
of course.
and we know exactly the size,
Yeah.
we work on that precise size, no, this new
Yes.
blend, because
Yeah.
that's the best. So yeah, if it's going to be a 5 feet, but in general, I believe most of the cigar makers work on that size
Yeah, they
to make
start
any
there
blend,
and
right?
then they'll gradually build up, let's say up to a 60 ring gauge for a lot. I know some companies nowadays are making 80, 100 ring gauge cigars. It's crazy, but let's just stick to like the common norm, 60 ring gauge. How do you think that affects the flavor of the cigar? Let's, you know, obviously like this cigar, for example, comes in different sizes itself, right? It's a similar, very, very comparable, similar profile, no matter what the size is, but there should be still a subtle difference, right?
Right. Yes.
And is it that you were saying that the bigger the ring gauge, the less intensity that you get, right?
You get
That's
a lot
that
of
the only,
smoke,
yeah,
right? A lot of smoke, but less intensity, I would say.
yeah,
And
absolutely,
that reflects on the strength also, no? Less strength.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, the longer and the thicker. For example, this one, the Robusto the Rosado on the Robusto size, it tastes one way. And I believe it's the size that gives the best expression of the
mm-hmm.
blend. Then the Gordito, well, actually, I like better.
The
This is me, the
gordito
Gordito, because I don't know, something happens on the taste because of the size. The Gordito is 60 by 4.
by 4, yeah,
So something happens there that for me, I enjoy it more, right?
absolutely,
However, on this one, since the intensity goes down, it's not that strong,
yes,
and it's fine for me also, right? But
yeah,
it changes.
yeah.
Not so much the taste profile,
Yeah.
right? But it's more the strength, the intensity that changes.
So customers shouldn't really judge a cigar in terms of how it tastes 100% only by one size.
Exactly.
So, when you're in San Andreas, obviously it's a huge, extensive process, and a lot of people kind of just see it from a bird's eye view and understand, okay, there's curation, fermentation, aging the cigar, then it's off to the market. But you know from personal experience, it's a lot more than that. So what do you think is some of the most common overlooked challenges when it comes to harvestation or blending the cigar?
Well, we receive the tobacco from our warehouse where we get the tobacco from the barns, and it goes through a 3 month fermentation process only in that area, in that warehouse. Then it goes through the selection, and then it's when I start to interfere No, I say, okay, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that
Yeah.
for the factory,
Yeah.
right? So I take that tobacco to the factory. Now, at that stage, the tobacco is pretty much uh, uh even or the same, no?
Yes. Yes.
So the first challenge is to ferment it, everything correctly and at the same level.
And
Let's
when you're doing the fermentation, that's the piling of the tobacco
exactly,
and the
exactly,
pilon. Yeah.
exactly. Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
yes.
And that can take how long usually?
Depends if it's a seco or a viso or
Okay.
ligero, can from 5, 6 months to 2 years. Let's say
The
sometimes.
Ligero, I'm not sure, but correct me if I'm wrong. Ligero will take the longest
Exactly.
because it's
Yes.
the thickest.
It's thickest,
Sure.
got more oil,
Yeah. Yeah.
etc. No,
Okay.
and also depends how fermented you want it.
Yeah.
No, there are some people who like the ligero, not so much fermented, because then it will lack some strength.
It will
The,
lack
the,
some
the the
strength. Yeah.
strength could go away,
Yeah.
and uh, and also, but others they like to leave it like a little bit low, just just
Yeah.
just in the line, right?
Yes. Yes.
To give some spiciness, some
Yes.
pepper, you know.
Which is what the
Those
Ligero is usually known for, from my understanding. More of a spicy, stronger
the
part of the
tobacco
leaf.
when it's fermented, fully fermented, it shouldn't give you
It
those
shouldn't.
flavors.
Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
shouldn't. I mean, those flavors come when the tobacco is young.
Yeah. When the
So
tobacco's
it's
young,
not really because
it's a Ligero.
exactly or this type of
But can
tobacco.
you expect those flavors from any prop, like from a Viso and Seco as well,
Also,
even tobacco's young?
when exactly.
But when
Yes.
you ferment a Viso or a Seco, for reference, just we're talking about parts of the plant, right? Viso,
Right.
Seco, and then Ligero. When you ferment Viso, Seco, it's like not gonna be. Let's say you ferment them each equally as just as long. You have Ligero pile, Viso, Seco, and you ferment them all for 3 months. Is that okay? 3 months? I don't know.
Seco,
6 months.
let's say,
Okay, yeah.
seco 5 months.
Uh, what like you can expect Ligero to be still bolder by the end of it, right? Than the Viso and Seco. It's not
Sure.
the Viso and Seco is not going to be as bold as the Ligero, or am I wrong? I'm
Well,
just asking
it's
you.
going to be young
It's
still,
yeah, it's
no?
got to be
Yeah,
young still.
you give them the same time, the seco may be ready, but the rest will be still young.
Yeah,
Yes, and you can
yeah,
taste it by that by experiencing the
yeah.
spiciness and the pepperiness.
And this process you mentioned happens after you cure the tobacco?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. After we cure the tobacco, it goes to the warehouse where we process the tobacco that we are going to sell. No,
Yes, yes.
and the tobacco usually stays for 3 months there. It's a very short fermentation.
Yeah.
We don't need to do it longer because actually the customer doesn't want to. No, and after 3 months, we sort the tobacco, we select it, and then is when I start
Yeah.
uh, to pick no which tobacco
Yeah.
goes to our factory, etc. And then this, let's say, the second fermentation starts. No,
Okay.
it is the second
Yeah.
fermentation for us. No,
But that's the pilon.
and
Yeah.
then yes, we start to put the tobacco, we start to moisture the tobacco, and we make pilones. But that's what I was going to say, that each pilon works differently.
Yes.
No, so you have to be very careful
Yeah.
and and make sure that you have a an even fermentation, even
Yes.
you have two or three
Yes. Keep going. Yes. Yes.
three or two or three or five pilones of the same type.
Right.
No,
Right.
so
Right.
that's one thing we do. Then after 5 months, we do another sorting, and that sorting is according to our process, our needs, factory needs. No, okay, we need this batch of tobacco from this priming. We needed to ferment it 100%,
A
just
hundred
to say,
percent, yeah,
right?
because you have an idea of what you could expect if you do it 100% to sort of reach that goal for a flavor that you have in mind or a strength.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. We know that this blend has this tobacco with 100%
with hundred
fermentation,
percent
right? Okay,
fermentation.
so
Yeah,
we need how much tobacco we need? Okay, depends on how many cigars we
how
need to
many you need to
produce,
produce,
etc.
all
So
that. Yeah,
okay, so let's say just an example, we have uh 10 tons of the one type of Habano 2000, fourth priming, right? We have,
okay,
and then what we do is after these 5, 6 months of fermentation, of this second fermentation, we sort it again and we separate
wow,
the leaves by thicknesses. So from
Wow.
these 10 tons of this fourth priming, we selected and we put it aside. Okay, so here's
Wow.
the extra thick, medium
Medium
thickness,
thick, yeah.
five thickness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then we decide how much of each of the type we should ferment and how.
Yes.
Like, okay, if from 10,000 we got, let's say, 4,000 of the thick one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how much of this 4,000 are we going to fully fermented and how much are going to get a 70% fermentation? No? So
Yes,
in
yes.
our case, and we do it that way because we are not importing so much tobacco anymore, no?
I get it.
So
Yeah.
what we are trying to do is to make the blends taste completely different,
Yeah.
and that's the way that we found
Yeah.
to do it,
And
to be
one
able
of
to
the
do it.
advantages of being a vertically integrated company is that you have more opportunity to explore. And instead of importing tobacco from the outside, you can explore and see what you get with the tobacco that you harvest with from your own fields and sort of play with those blends.
Right. Yes.
So that is one extensive process because you were saying that if a fermentation, the time it took to get the result from one pile or one pilon and another one is a different result with another pilon because let's say it's a different part of the plant, those are two different distinct results. Also, it depends on how long you did that for. It could give you another set of different results. So you have so many different directions that you take it just from the process of trying to finish from seed to completion. And that gives a lot of customers or friends an idea of what exactly goes on. Not exactly, but just a general idea. There is a lot that goes into this process.
And on top of that, you have the fact that the each crop may be different, no?
Yeah, different
So yeah,
climate, different year, different
because of that,
harvestation.
yes.
So that leads me to another question I want to ask you, because obviously you are a wealth of knowledge and obviously it's a generational thing. So how do you make sure, I've always wondered, how do you make sure a cigar is consistent year after year if there are so many external variables that you cannot control, like the weather, just for example? What do you do to ensure that this cigar, if somebody enjoyed it this year and you want to buy it next year, he can expect the same consistent experience?
But that's always a challenge, no?
Yeah,
And we are lucky that the the crops do not change like in wines, for example. No,
yeah.
that could be a huge change. There could be a big difference from one year to the other in wines. No, in
Hmm.
tobacco it could change, yes. No, but it has to be very extreme. No,
Hmm.
right? The season. Anyway, but it's always a challenge. No, so what we do, there's nothing better than to smoke, to keep smoking. To that's
Keep
why
trying. Yeah,
to
yeah.
having to uh make good cigars, you must have somebody in the factory that knows extremely well all the 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 flavors that each tobacco must give you. No?
Okay.
So he's the one that decides, okay, well, now we don't have in again, no, let's say this tobacco, fourth priming, whatever, uh, it lacks strength or it lacks these flavor notes. Okay, let's try another one, no?
Yes,
Probably
yes,
the third priming and
yes.
this kind of leaves. And if they match, no, they're not the same, they're not coming from the same part, but if they match the taste that of the tobacco that you were using, no, or that you
Yeah,
have been using,
yeah.
okay, it's fine, let's
It's
use it,
good.
no. So,
It's
but
good.
that's a decision that has to be taken by someone that
Yeah.
really knows how to smoke.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you can just kind of sort of go from year to year, and you have to go through that same process you mentioned. Try to ensure that the cigars are consistent. Like the smoke is going to be great. The transition of flavor is great. All these things are hard to control. I understand, but you do your best from the manufacturing side, right?
Right. Yeah, well, the
Yeah,
first thing is the blend. No, you have to be sure that the tobaccos will, the cigar, no, with all the tobaccos will deliver the same taste that they should,
yeah,
no.
yeah,
And then, of course, the manufacturing. During the manufacturing, you have to be very precise on the control. You have to measure the tobaccos that are you have to control the quantity of each tobacco that is used in the cigar. No?
yes, yes,
So let's say it's an example for every 1,000 cigars, no, you have to use, or the cigar maker have to use this is an example, no? 5 kilos of this tobacco, 8 kilos of this other tobacco,
Okay.
and 10 kilos.
Yeah.
You have to make sure
The numbers are always the same.
exactly, because
Yeah.
otherwise, if the cigar maker used less or more of any of these tobaccos, something wrong is going on, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about some of your favorite kind of parts of Mexico outside of growing your cigars there. What do you enjoy most when you visit back to your country besides cigars? The food, perhaps, the beaches. What
Yes,
do you think it would be?
everything, the
Yeah.
beaches, the food, the music,
Yeah.
the places. Yes,
So
we have beautiful places.
yeah, a lot of our friends and customers visit Mexico, and they want to smoke their cigars there, but they recently passed a law, I believe, in Cancun, for example, where you can't smoke outside on the beach or
Just
whatever.
in certain beaches, I believe,
Certain
not
beaches,
in all
depends on where
Cancun.
you are.
Yes, I think in Cozumel you're not allowed now to smoke on the beaches.
Yeah,
Yes, but that's it. In Cancun you are. Not inside the hotels. I believe there are still some hotels that are allowed
yeah,
smoking. But yes, it has become more strict. That's for sure, unfortunately. Yes.
yeah. Let's say we wanted to make a trip and visit the Casa Turrent factory and see the process. You know, a lot of people are always interested in that, especially like the diehard cigar aficionados. How is that itinerary? Like, what does it look like? So if you land in Cancun, I assume, and then how long would it take to get to your factory?
Well, what I would recommend is to go either through Houston or Dallas because there are direct flights from there to Veracruz City, or Mexico City, and then Veracruz or Cancun.
Yes,
And then once you arrive in Veracruz City, you have to drive about 2 hours south to get to San Andres.
2 hours, which is,
Yes.
I mean, that's very, very normal. Yeah, 2 hours, not that bad. And then in San Andreas, yeah, a lot of volcanic soil there, you mentioned. But is there any kind of activities besides the factory that customers can do while they're there?
Yes, there are many nice sightseeings.
Yeah,
And as I said, it's a tropical area.
yeah,
So there are a lot of mountains and, well, yeah, mountains to explore.
yeah.
And we are very close to the beach. We are surrounded by mountains, and behind the mountains, there's the beach. So we've
Wow,
got the mountains and the beach.
wow.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Yes.
Yeah,
And we also have a big lake very close to San Andres. I mean,
yeah.
it's in the area. The area of San Andres, it's called in the tobacco business, San Andres is referred to the uh, area where we produce the tobacco, right? But the all the region is called Los Tuxtlas,
Okay.
this volcanic area. And this region is formed by three towns. One is
Mm-hmm.
called Santiago, the other one is San Andres, and Catemaco. And they are all very close to each other. And Catemaco has a beautiful lake, and where you can go on a boat, swim, etc.,
Yeah.
fish, and it's surrounded by
Yes.
beautiful mountains, and you
Yeah.
can do also hiking or.
Yeah. A bit of a political question, perhaps, but what would you say to foreigners who want to visit but are afraid because they hear about uh, gangs, corruption, safety issues, so they kind of hesitant. Is there anything that you could kind of shed some light on and give them some sort of assurance in terms of like how to avoid certain people and make sure that you're in the right place at the right time?
Well, those kind of things are happening mainly in the border with the US. No?
Yes.
So yes, my recommendation would be not to go to the
Yeah.
border, no, of Mexico with the US,
Yes.
and also in the central north part of Mexico. Shouldn't go there, but we are exactly on the opposite. No,
You're on, yeah.
Veracruz are in the opposite. It's completely safe.
Yes.
Nothing is happening over there. So
When would be a good time to make a trip there, do you think? Like for to visit the
oof,
fields too, is that possible?
October, November, I would say.
Yeah, to visit the
Yes.
fields? Yeah,
October, early November,
and then
most.
for your company, like when is like rolling season? Like when you start focusing, like because I assume like part of the year you focus on harvestation, and then you're always rolling cigars throughout the year. Is
Yes,
that how it is?
yes.
Okay, yeah. But harvesting or
Yeah, remember that the cigar production or the cigar business doesn't have anything to do with the tobacco growing operation. We are
yeah,
we
yeah,
are totally separate, no?
yeah,
So yes, the cigar company is always making cigars.
always.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And why I'm saying October and November is because all the many activities are going on the fields. No,
Yes.
we are still planting,
Yes.
we are doing different labors on the fields, we're harvesting, we're hanging tobacco in the barns, we're taking down the tobacco. So many activities are going. You see tobaccos of different sizes.
Yes.
So that's when I would recommend.
What do you think is next for Casa Turrent? What are you excited for? Is there any projects that you can speak on, or you want to keep it sort of, behind closed doors?
No, where we are going to be very busy on it is on making limited editions. No,
Yes, yes,
think we we are like a serious boutique company. No,
yes.
we make 2.5 million cigars a year
Wow.
compared to other companies, not much. Um, and we want to grow, of course, but steadily, step by step. And that's the way that we want to
Yeah,
remain. No, so
yeah,
now what we are planning to do is to use excellent tobacco that we have, but we do not have in big quantities. No,
yeah,
so and it's just amazing tobaccos. And the reason why we don't use it is because we are very careful of you know trying to deliver the same taste. No, so if you change something, if you add something that you usually don't use, the consumer, something that we will never do, of course, right? But the consumer will notice it, right?
yeah,
So what are we doing? We are just separating these small batches, let's say, no, that
yeah.
we get from the process, and those small batches of tobacco is what we want to use in our limited editions that we are going to come up with.
How long do you typically age the cigars for on average for different blends? Do you say there's a lot of age that goes on in the, the
Not on
portfolio?
the cigar, not on the cigar.
Not on the not after it's been rolled, but just you when you're fermenting it, for example?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
What you need to be fermented, what you need to age
Yeah.
is the tobacco,
Yes,
not
yeah.
the cigar. No,
Right, right.
many people think that this is my opinion that the cigar must be aged, and that it's not in our experience. No, with our tobacco, no, it's not the case. You the purpose of resting the cigar after it's made is to get rid of the humidity and that the tobaccos marry
Yeah,
with each other, basically, you know, so
sure.
the flavors get combined.
Yeah,
That's it. Once it reaches the right level of humidity, ready to pack, ship it, and it's ready to smoke.
sure.
Right? You shouldn't do
Yeah,
that thing that okay, I'm going to leave them for
yeah,
3 more months or six.
yeah,
In my opinion, of what has happened, because I see a lot of comments about it
yeah.
online,
Likewise, yeah. Like,
and
they let it sit for 2 years after and stuff like that.
my opinion is that probably the manufacturer didn't do that job, right? Probably he made them, and after 2 weeks, okay, just pack
Yeah,
it
yeah,
and ship it, no, and sell. And of course, if you have a cigar that didn't get rest enough, the flavor may change, no, may
and you can
it,
taste some of that
but
ammonia a little bit, and because the tobaccos didn't really
but that's
marinate
also on
from
the tobacco
fermentation.
from
Yeah, yeah,
fermentation,
that's a cause
right?
of
Yes,
fermentation. Absolutely.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
The only thing that, like I said, no, is that could be very humid. The cigar, it could have a lot of moist, so that's why if you leave it for a
yeah.
couple of months in your humidor,
Make
then
sure
of
it
course after
stabilizes.
six, it would taste better,
It would taste better.
right?
Yeah, humidity
Makes
is
sense,
optimal.
right? Yes,
Yeah,
but it's something that the manufacturers should do.
yeah.
No,
What is your recommendation for an optimal humidity level for, I know it could depend on the cigar blend sometimes, if it's a thinner wrapper or thicker wrapper, but
in
what do you
general,
feel like is a good range?
70% humidity.
Yeah, yeah. And then
That's what
at what range, just for people watching, should they try to avoid? Like if it gets more than what humidity range should they be concerned?
would say 73 could be a little bit risky, no? Because you
Yeah,
could start getting some plum,
yeah,
on the cigar.
yeah,
73. So yeah, I think you have to be very precise
yeah.
also. No,
Very
I
precise.
guess from 70, 69, 72,
Yeah.
that range.
Yeah. So aged limited editions rather, we're expecting those. Can the Canadian market, like, expect some in the near future? Is it not something that you see possible? Or what is the timeline?
Oh, of course, I would like to offer to our
Yeah.
Canadian customers our
Yeah.
limited editions. Yes,
Well, we
yes,
certainly
yes.
look forward to that. This has been something like extremely educational, just a wealth of information. You have a lot of history and knowledge, obviously. And I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're a busy man on schedule here in the country, but I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, we really appreciate you making a stop here. It's an absolute honor to speak with you. And I hope a lot of our friends and customers learned more and more about what the company is and how they have managed to stay successful for decades on end. And Alejandro, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.